props to you if you foresaw the Jaguars being this bad, because at the beginning of the season, I projected that they were going to be a middle-of-the-road type of team, and they have been so far below that. If the season ended today, they would have the number 1 overall pick, which is really saying a lot because there's a lot of bad teams in the NFL right now, but they stand out as the worst currently. What's worst about that, too, is the fact that they have decent quarterback play, with Trevor Lawrence ranking 17th out of 37 quarterbacks, according to my metric, that combines 6 advanced stats into one holistic stat. So Lawrence is not playing terribly. He's definitely not playing as well as you would hope that he would, but he's not the biggest reason that they're in the cellar like they are. Their offensive line is also actually adequate. They're 17th in pass blocking when combining PFF's pass blocking grades for the team with ESPN's pass blocking win rate. So they're about average also. If you have an average quarterback and an average offensive line, you should be much better than the worst team in the NFL. I don't think that's up for discussion. So it is absurd that they are as bad as they are, especially too because Brian Thomas, he's 18th in yards per game and 9th in yards per reception. He's a rookie sensation, so he is definitely helping the team a fair amount. In addition to that, they have Christian Kirk, who is an okay number 2. He's 52nd in yards per game and 30th in yards per reception, so he's all right. And then they have a good tight end also in Evan Ingram, who's 10th in yards per game for tight ends and 28th in yards per reception for tight ends. So even though he's a blazingly fast tight end, he's not really getting too many deep receptions, but I would still take him any day of the week. He is very efficient, or not efficient, he's very effective in the short area of the field. So he definitely has an allure to him. Things get problematic at the third wide receiver slot, though, because Gabe Davis is 53rd in yards per reception, which is his main thing. He's a deep threat. So he's not effective at the one thing he should be effective at. And that is a glaring issue for the Jags. But again, it's kind of not enough for them to be so bad. Lots of teams have bad wide receiver 3s and aren't the worst team in the league. Moving to their rushing element, they are 8th in rushing expected points added and 17th in rushing success rate. So again, they're actually good at that. They're not even just average, they're pretty good at rushing the ball. They may not be the most consistent in how effective they are, but they break off long runs, and that is something that has a lot of value. If you don't know what these stats are, I have a video that breaks down expected points added. It's an awesome stat. It can be used for offenses, defenses, quarterbacks, you name it. It's super useful. Defensively, this is where things really reveal themselves as being problematic. They're 32nd in defensive expected points added and 20th in defensive success rate. So they are really struggling on a play-by-play basis, and they're also giving up big chunk plays also. And that sort of makes sense. We'll look at where they're struggling defensively, but to start off, we'll look at where they're strong at. Defenses are primarily a weak link system where you're only as good as your weakest players are. And that's really the case with the Jags because they have 6 above average defenders, I would say. They have Josh Hines-Allen, Trayvon Walker, so 2 great edges. Not great, but it's a great edge rushing duo. Hines-Allen is fantastic and Walker is pretty darn good. Fuyasad Oluokun and Devin Lloyd, really good linebackers. So their front 7 looks pretty secure. Then Jarian Jones and Tyson Campbell, 2 good corners. So you would think this is a good defense. You're good at all 3 levels. They're not. They have 2 bad defenders that make the whole defense look a lot worse, and Andre Sisco and Darnell Savage both being poor safeties. So they bring down the unit as a whole and make everything much worse. I think if they had even average safety play, they would go from being 32nd in defensive expected points added to somewhere comfortably in the 20s. It would be, I would say, like the mid 20s, maybe even the low 20s. Their defense is not bad. It really isn't. It's just there are some glaring issues to it. And that is unfortunately going to be their undoing for this season, is they don't have a proficient defense. They have some holes across the board, don't get me wrong. But there's also a fair amount of talent on this team. I think next year will be a much better year for the Jags because, one, they're going to get a very good pick this year. And two, things are just not going their way. They can clean up their roster a fair amount. So I think things will be better moving forward. Those are my thoughts on the Jaguars. Be sure to let me know what yours are in the comment section. And also be sure to like and subscribe for more NFL content.